somewhere in the middle of the Pacific. A single sensor on the equator just sent back a number that made forecasters go quiet. The water is 1.7 degrees above normal and still climbing. Less than 2 degrees. You'd never feel it on your skin. But this is the stretch of ocean that decides whether California floods, whether India's rains fail, whether next year becomes the hottest in human history. The wave is already moving. You just can't see it yet. It didn't start in a laboratory. It started with fear. For centuries, Peruvian fishermen pulled their living from one of the richest seas on Earth, cold, black, teeming water. Then every few years, around Christmas, the sea would turn on them. The water warmed. The fish vanished. The nets came up empty. They called the warm current El Niño, the little boy, the Christ child, because it arrived near Christmas. To them, it was a curse on their coast. A bad season. A local thing. What no one could have known was that this small, private misery off one strip of coastline was the visible edge of something enormous, a force that had nothing to do with Peru at all. They had just named one of the most powerful engines on the planet. The first sign that this was bigger came from half a world away. In British India, a mathematician named Gilbert Walker was hunting the monsoon, the rains millions of lives depended on. Stare at enough numbers, he believed, and the future would reveal itself. It did, and the scale of it unsettled him. Across the whole tropical Pacific, he found a colossal seesaw of pressure. When the air pressed down on one side of the ocean, it lifted on the other, a planet-sized scale, tipping back and forth across thousands of miles. He called it the Southern Oscillation. Then he hit a wall he couldn't cross. He never linked his great seesaw in the sky to the warm water off Peru. He had found one half of a creature without ever knowing the other half existed. For decades that wall held. The ocean was the ocean. The sky was the sky, studied in separate buildings, by separate people who rarely spoke. It was a sensible way to see the world, and a completely blind one. Then, in the late 1960s, Jacob Bjerknes saw what everyone had missed. The warm sea and the shifting winds weren't two phenomena. They were one, each half feeding the other, neither able to move without dragging the other along. That gave us the name we still use, UNESO, ocean and atmosphere, fused into a single system. And once you stop seeing two things and start seeing one, a harder understanding arrives. How a warm current off Peru can reach out, silent and unseen, and close its hand around the whole world. To understand the danger, you have to understand the engine. And the engine is the wind. Picture the Pacific in a calm year. The trade winds blow steadily west along the equator, dragging the sun-warmed surface water with them and piling it into a vast mound near Indonesia, a reservoir of heat the size of a continent. In the east, off South America, cold water climbs from the deep to take its place. As long as the winds blow, the heat stays pinned in the west, and the world stays calm. But the winds don't always blow. They falter. Sometimes they stop. Sometimes they reverse. And the moment they stop pushing, that mountain of warm water does the one thing nothing can prevent. It comes back, east, across thousands of miles of open ocean. Here is what turns a shift into a monster. As the warm water spreads east, it heats the air above it, which weakens the winds further, which frees more warm water to surge east, which heats more air. A loop devouring itself, growing as it feeds. Scientists call it the Bjerknes feedback. No spark, no explosion, just water and air winding each other tighter and tighter. The ocean catching fire without a single flame. So what happens when all that heat presses up against the sky? The great engines of rain, the towering thunderstorms that normally sit over Indonesia are torn, loose and dragged thousands of miles east, out over open ocean. And because the atmosphere is one connected system, the planet's weather has to rearrange itself around the wound. The result is a fingerprint, the same signature appearing again and again across the world. Floods in the southern United States and South America, drought scorching Australia, Indonesia, southern Asia, the Indian monsoon strangled, the rains simply failing to arrive. Atlantic hurricanes choked off before they form, while Pacific storms are unleashed. One warm patch of sea, and a farmer 10,000 miles away stands in a cracked, dry field under a sky that will give him nothing, while a family on another continent watches floodwater climb the walls. Two ends of a single thread pulled tight across the planet, and neither of them will ever know. For most of human history, no one connected the disasters. A flood here, a famine there, a drought somewhere else. Bad luck scattered across the map, suffered by people who never imagined they were linked. Then came 1997, the strongest El Niño ever recorded, and the first the world watched move in real time. The cascade was almost beyond belief. Record floods in California, one of the worst droughts in Indonesia's history, turning the land to tinder. Rains so violent across East Africa, they touched off an outbreak of disease. Then came the figures that silenced the room. The event helped make the following year the hottest humanity had ever recorded, and bleached white roughly 16% of all the coral reefs on Earth, an ocean event, reaching up to warm the whole atmosphere, and down to kill reefs across a quarter of the world, with economic losses that kept bleeding outward for years into the trillions. That was the moment El Niño stopped being a fisherman's whisper on a distant coast and became a force governments brace for. To feel what is truly at stake, go back to a time before satellites, before sensors, before any warning at all, when the monster could rise and no one even knew to look up. The late 1870s. A super El Niño settled over the planet. The trade winds collapsed, the warm water surged, and across the world the monsoons failed. What followed is among the darkest chapters in human history. As many as 50 million people died of drought and famine across India, China, Brazil, and Africa, as the rain's entire civilizations depended on simply stopped coming. 50 million, whole provinces emptied, civilizations that had endured for thousands of years brought down in a matter of seasons. And almost none of them knew why. No buoys, no satellites, no word for the thing dissolving their world. The same warm sea the Peruvian fishermen had blessed as the Christ child was, on the far side of the planet, killing on a scale almost too vast to hold in the mind. Here is what should never leave you. El Niño makes no landfall. It throws no lightning and casts no shadow. It is nothing more than the temperature of the sea, and with nothing more than that, it has reached into human history and rewritten it in blood, over and over, unseen. We are not the people of the 1870s. We have warning now, satellites, models, a name. That should change how this story ends. But we have also built something they never had. A world stitched so tightly together that a wound in one place bleeds in all of them. A strong El Niño can drop the water in the Panama Canal until ships sit stranded, choking global trade. It can starve the monsoon and slash the rice and wheat harvests that billions depend on. It can crack the earth across one breadbasket in the same season it drowns another. The last super El Niño, in 2015 and 2016, cost the world economy trillions. The damage rippling outward for years after the ocean had gone cold again. A patch of warm water you will never see. And it arrives at your door as the price of bread. The cost of fuel, the empty shelf. The little boy off the coast of Peru now reaches into nearly every life on Earth. And in 2026, that warm patch is rising again. For a century, we believed we knew how to measure the beast. The rule was almost elegant. Read the temperature of that one stretch of Pacific. Compare it to normal, and the further above normal, the stronger the monster. Weak, strong, very strong, a clean ladder of fear. This is where the story turns inside out. Because normal has been moving. Every sea on Earth has been warming for decades. The baseline creeping upward beneath our feet. So when forecasters watched the Pacific climb toward record territory in 2026, toward an El Niño that could rival 1997 itself, they ran into a question that chilled them. Is the sea that hot because a true monster is rising from the deep? Or because the planet's baseline has crept up underneath it, lifting El Niño and ordinary ocean alike into the red? The ruler we had trusted for 100 years could no longer tell the difference. In the moment we needed it most, the instrument had quietly gone blind. So they built a new ruler. They call it RONI, and what it does is quietly radical. It strips away the background warming of the whole ocean and leaves only the El Niño itself, naked and alone. Noah leaned on it because it tracks the real fury, the winds and storms that actually deliver the suffering, far more faithfully than the old measure could. And here is the blade at the heart of 2026. By raw ocean heat, this event could break every record we have, but measured by the new ruler. the one that subtracts a warming world. The atmospheric monster may turn out smaller than the ocean numbers scream, the sea, breaking records while the storm it drives runs closer to moderate. Some forecasts even see the whole system swinging back toward La Nina the very next year. So strip it down. What do we actually know? An El Niño has formed. That much is certain. It is expected to grow at least strong by autumn, with a real chance of very strong. And its heaviest blow has always landed in the second year, which means the true reckoning may not fall in 2026 at all, but across 2027, after the headlines have moved on. The one thing every soul most wants to know, we cannot yet answer, when the ocean is the hottest we have ever seen. But the climate has changed the very meaning of hot. How hard will this one hit? On that, the truth is genuinely unknown, not hidden, not buried, not suppressed. We are not studying this experiment from the outside. We are living inside it as it runs. Pull back far enough, and the terror gives way to something else. This slow warming and cooling of the Pacific, the little boy the fisherman feared, the Seesaw Walker chased, the single creature Bjerknes named, is something close to a heartbeat for the whole planet. One of the most powerful natural forces on Earth, pulsing every few years, moving heat and rain and hunger across a world full of people who will live their whole lives and never once feel the ocean that governs their sky. For 400 years we fought to see it, to name it, to measure it. And now, in 2026, we stand somewhere no generation before us has stood, the moment our own planet began, changing faster than the instruments we built to watch it. We made a ruler to measure the ocean, and the ocean grew past it. There is dread in that, but there is something fiercer in it too. The 50 million who died in the 1870s, perished never knowing what had reached across the world to kill them. We get to watch ours rise, to name it as it forms, to argue its true size in the open, to prepare. Knowing instead of not knowing is the only thing that separates us from them. And every bit of it was bought with nothing more than stubborn human curiosity. So later this year, when you hear the Pacific has gone warm again, understand what you are hearing. Not a weather report, not a distant statistic. The pulse of a living planet, beating once more, at last loud enough for us to hear. The ocean is going to speak this year. The only question left is whether we have finally learned enough to understand what it is saying.